Hi, I'm Franki. Welcome to Business on the Rise.
This podcast is your playbook to learn everything you need to know to launch, grow, and fund your brand.
Today, we're talking to Regina Rahim, co-founder and managing director of Wahine Capital. We talk about money and financial literacy and security. Wahine Capital has developed this innovative W Vault, a safety security box for all of us women to keep our financial matters at safe. Regina Rahim, thank you for being here. Good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having me here.
Thank you for being here. I've told you this before. I've always had my eye on you, not in that provocative way, but you're a person I've always identified as this strong, courageous, and is the kind of person that you don't mess with. I've always thought that, and I still think that. And I've always thought that I need to spend a little bit more time with somebody like her because I want to learn. I am not financially savvy at all. But you are. You were with CIMB at one point, and then you moved to, tell me a little bit more.
Nomura, yep.
Nomura, for 24 years. You were the CEO, managing director of Nomura. So you started the company from ground zero here.
Yep.
Tell me a little bit more about your journey, because where you are now, you've set up Wahine Capital. We can talk about your services, the products, a little bit later, but I want to know a little bit more about you and your journey, because the role that you're playing now is very, very important. And I think there is a lot of strong messages that we need to communicate out there about finance, and especially for us women. 90% of the time, according to research,
Yep.
we hand over those financial decisions to our spouses. That's a little bit scary and a little bit daunting for me, and I think for everybody else. So start with how you started and to where you are now.
Right. That's quite a lot to unpack, but
Yes.
really, just got to correct you there.
Yes.
24 years in investment management,
Yes.
but 15 years with Nomura.
Yes, got
Okay.
it. Sorry about that.
So who am I? Great question. I think, when people ask me, who am I start off with saying, I'm a work in progress, right? So what I am right now, what I was 10 years ago, 15 years ago is very, very different. Yes, so I've got, 28 years in capital markets in Malaysia. I started Nomura from scratch, as you said, and grew it to $7 billion in terms of assets under management.
Oh my God.
That was, maybe it was a fluke, but, people will say, you're a typical woman. You will say it's a fluke and stuff like that. But essentially, it's plug and play, right? So I set it up, but because the Nomura brand was already there, so I didn't have to worry about it. So getting clients in. So within 10 months, I had $1 billion in assets under management. So everyone thought I was the hottest thing ever.
You didn't think you were the hottest thing ever?
No, that's where your mindset as a woman is very different, right? You keep thinking, I need to do more. I need to prove them that
Who's them?
The men, because basically it's a Japanese firm.
Dominated.
One, it's a Japanese firm. Two, it's male dominated. So one thing great was I didn't need to queue for the toilet anytime whenever I was in Japan, because there was always a queue for the men, but not for the ladies, because hardly any women were of MD level and above. So that was a real experience, great experience. So one of the key lessons I learned from being in Nomura was the fact that I had to be resilient. I had to have obviously thick skin because I was the only non-Japanese speaking woman foreigner who was an MD. So trying to get resources and everything was very, very difficult. But, after the first 10 months and they realized that money was just rolling in, then it was easy. And it was part of the fact that it was easy as such. I just felt I wasn't challenged. So after 12 years, I felt, what else could I do? So I was already managing the region, was doing certain things, helping out regionally, but that wasn't enough. So I was mentoring from 2010, and I knew that I like to help people, right? And as fund managers, we talk about impact investing. So then I realized there was a real disconnect between what was really happening in the capital markets and what was really happening in the ground, right? And COVID hit. And that was how Wahine was basically born, because I wanted to do something that was going to really be impactful to individuals, right? And I thought coaching was the way to go at first. But then coaching, there's only limited time, right? I can only coach X amount of people. But with a digital vault, that's something else. You could actually really impact a lot more people and be more significant.
Tell me a little bit more about Nomura. You made $1 billion. That's USD.
Yes. Assets under management. So that's managing people's money.
Right. So how treat me like I'm a teenager, right? I have 500 ringgit in my bank account.
Yeah.
And I don't know what to do with that money. So how did you manage people's money? And with such an amount that you were dealing with, I can't imagine even managing somebody's 1 million ringgit.
Yep.
Like, what sort of a mindset do you need to have to be dealing with that kind of assets? And that's pretty bold and brave. Again, it's such a male-dominated sector. And then here comes this Malaysian woman, MD, and just a rocket pocket to the company all of a sudden.
Well, you've got to take it this way. At the end of the day, when it comes to managing people's money, it's always a teamwork, right? I'm not managing that $1 billion all by myself. And I'm not the fund manager. So my background was always legal and compliance.
Right.
So that was also another thing. For the Japanese, they like people who are generalist.
Right.
Right? Whereas in Malaysia, if you're a CEO of a fund management company, it's usually because you're an investment person.
Right.
So I already brought a different perspective there.
Right.
So the process, whether you're managing 100,000, 1 million, or 1 billion, is the same. It's just a matter of in terms of how the client servicing is.
Right.
So in investment management, it was always a matter of like, okay, it's better to manage institutional money compared to high net worth money.
Right.
Because high net worth individuals are a lot more difficult because they demand a lot more of your time. They ask questions. They call you any time of the day. Why is my money not growing?
Right.
Blah, blah, blah.
And there's emotions that come
exactly.
in. Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. So now, Wahine Capital. And it's a beautiful name and it's a special name. Tell us a little bit more about what it means and the Maori connection.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, so when we decided to set up a company, Sherry and I, we were looking for something that was significant enough to show that we wanted to do more things for women, right? That it was a very women-focused business. So we didn't want the word wanita, we didn't want the word woman, obviously. So I said, hey, how about Wahine? And it means women in Maori. And Sherry says, yeah, why not? That, is a good conversation starter. And of course, the fact remains that Zol, my husband, is half Kiwi. And both my children are, they live in Auckland, New Zealand. So that was basically it. Yeah.
Okay. So tell us a little bit more about the product and services. And why is it important for you to be targeting specifically women? Did something trigger? Did you have an aha moment with your partner, business partner, Sherry, to think we have to focus on women? Does it take a feminist to think, I just want to focus on women?
Well, I think in all my years of mentoring and just being a female C-suite in Malaysia at that point, as well as being one of the very few MDs who are women in Nomura, it just felt natural, right? Because I just felt as if our voices weren't heard. And at the end of the day, even professionals, it was very, very clear. Most women were, it's okay, you might be doing really well in your career, but again, when it comes to real money matters, you leave it to the men. So I was very different in terms of how how my financial position was with Zoe. We've always had separate accounts and all that. And I was earning very, very well. So it was never a question of us being dependent on each other, right? So I think in that sense, the focus on women was very easy. Sherry came from a women-based NGO, and all the mentoring that I did, it was always women who needed a lot more confidence boosting rather than their male counterparts. And I thought, why not? And then when you start looking at the stats, whether it's death, divorce, retirement, critical illness, we're the ones who are at risk of losing 50% or more of our assets and income. Simply because we're not organized, simply because we are paid 30% less, we are the default caretakers. And, default caretakers are not just the kids, but also aging parents, right? So seriously, it really sucks to be a woman, right? So why not? Why not focus on the women, try and get that level playing field for them to realize that, hey, you've got rights. You've got rights, you have the ability to actually make a choice, but that choice is always driven by money, right? If you don't have money, it's hard to have those choices.
Yes, it's always money.
Yeah.
I want to talk a little bit more about business partnerships before we dive deeper into some of the products and services like W Vault.
Yeah.
Such a great product. I'm a big fan of business partnerships. I have my beautiful partner, Gaia. I don't know what I would do without her. And your business partner, Sherry Kamardin, who was also...
Sherry Sharif.
My 1,000 apologies.
No
I'm
worries.
talking about another friend of mine.
Yes, we know.
Sherry. Menopause brain into action. How did you both meet, and why did you decide to partner up together? Was it something about Sherry that, that sort of attracted you and think we can do this together? Have you ever thought about being solo in Wahine Capital, or was it always the plan to have a partner?
Okay, so when the whole idea came about, so it basically was instigated by my sister's passing. So my sister passed away in October 2020. But I was grappling with the fact that she was already, deteriorating and she was dying. So I already had the idea that I wanted to leave Nomura and do something else. Right. And so I really wanted to, come up with a company and stuff like that. So I had already had the idea of W Vault. In its basic idea. And I had bounced it off with Sherry. And Sherry is one of those people that I've known, 20 odd years because our daughters grew up together and stuff like that. And it's just like with marriage, right? When that
feels
partnership feels
right.
So she immediately took up with the idea and said that, hey, this can actually have a lot more use cases than what you're thinking of right now.
Right.
And given where her background from an NGO perspective came about, she just thought, yeah, let's do it. And so she quit her job. So I quit my job. I gave myself a time frame of a year. So she quit her job. She did her master's in gender studies. I quit my job in Nomura, which was mentally very challenging. I missed those bonuses and the salary. it took me a year to really quit. So that's why I only stepped down as MD in November 2021, but I stayed on until April 2023 actually. Took me 18 months after that before really to cut off ties, right? So Sherry's also a good because the way her character is and the way I am, she compliments me very, very well because I'm the kind of person who would be like, yeah, I need to do everything by 2 days ago and stuff like that. So she's like, calm down. Also because she's also an ex-regulator, so I think she sees the big picture quite well.
Right. She was with Securities Commission.
Yeah. Correct, yeah. So in that sense, she's very complimentary to how I am, where I'm always like, I got to do it. Let's do it. Let's do it. And so she's like, calm down. Let's really look at this properly. So yes, and she gives different perspectives, which is what you need, right?
Yes.
You don't want to be, having the same thought and everything, which then makes it very dull and as well as not very effective in terms of ideation and stuff like that. So yeah, a lot of things that what we do in Wahine is also because of the way she does things and how she thinks about it. So yeah.
I think that's beautiful how you talk about her.
Thank you.
Very, very special. Big fan. I just want to probe a little bit more on the partnership because I think business partnerships, especially two women, and if you've had history of friendship, can be villainized a little bit. I kind of want to steer that in another direction based on your experience. Do you ever have debates? I'm sure you do because you are two very different women and you have two different perspectives on a lot of things, and that's why it works. But sometimes women think of it as like, oh, that hurt my feeling. Because we can get emotional sometimes, right? And not differentiate that, no, she's actually just being very pragmatic.
Yeah.
Have you had those moments?
Yes, of course.
And have you had moments of being uncomfortable in terms of feelings, and how do you address it?
Yeah, so I'm usually the clueless one. So she's always saying, yeah, you now wouldn't notice, right? But so I think it's a matter of respect. So I respect her as a friend, as a business partner, as an individual. And I think that's very important with any relationship, whether, however you do it. You've got to respect your partner. So yes, I've apologized many times to say like, oh, I'm really sorry because, the way I say things sometimes, because I want to get things done and, I'll cut her off or whatever.
Yeah.
She won't say it. Typical woman as well, right? You just keep quiet and stuff.
So you probe her to
then I'm like, I'm really sorry how I behaved earlier and stuff like that. And so far, touch wood, it's working. She hasn't booted me out. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. I'm glad that we can talk about this.
Yeah.
Because these are real challenges that we face as entrepreneurs when we have those business partnerships. And
it's also with working relationships, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay. So
I think that also goes back to the fact that I started my career as a compliance person. So I knew that I wasn't there to be Miss Popularity contest type thing, right? So at which point, maybe I'm a bit harsh in terms of my delivery sometimes.
Right. Hard, not harsh, probably.
Yeah, both.
Assertive.
Yeah, very assertive. Yes,
okay.
For sure.
That's not a bad thing, I feel. I think women need to be a little bit more assertive. I think they need to communicate directly on what they want to say and not like round.
Yeah, not circling around the issue.
Yeah, because we tend to do that sometimes.
Yeah.
So I'm a big fan of assertive women.
Okay.
Again, going back to why I've identified you as the person to learn from. Let's talk a little bit more about this great product and app that you've developed, W Vault.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit more about that, what it does, and why it's important for all of us women to get onto that app?
All right. So I mentioned earlier about death, divorce, critical illness, retirement as, causing a woman to be at risk of losing 50% or more of their assets or income. So essentially what I notice is that most people, no matter how organized they are, will keep all their information in different places, right?
Yes.
Different files, different cupboards, etc., right?
Yes.
So different Excel spreadsheets and stuff like that. But what happens is that if anything major were to happen to you, your loved ones can't access it. And then even if you're doing your taxes or you're wanting to do financial management better, you're going to have to go through all those different files. And what happens is you procrastinate and decide, I'll do it another day. And that's why it never gets done. So precisely from the experience of losing my sister and having to sort out her affairs.
Right.
And, what
was
we
that
knew.
like?
So even though we knew that she was getting more and more ill as the years went by, but like normal human nature, right? You just don't think about it. You don't want to talk about it because
too tough.
It's too tough, right?
Yeah.
So 3 months plus took me to get all the information sorted out before I could even talk to a lawyer, right? Because your lawyer is going to say, if you don't have that information, I can't help you, right? And then when I started talking to a lot of other people, they say, hey, actually, I face the same thing. I had to go through going from one bank to another with just my sister's IC type thing, right? So luckily for me, I didn't have that issue. But it's a common issue because we don't keep our affairs in order typically, and definitely not in a digital vault, not in a digitized way. So which is why we thought like if you could actually have at the tip of your fingers and access to all the information that you need, whether you're doing your taxes, whether you're just wanting to manage your affairs better, or if you wanted to write a will, all that information is there. So which is why we've done that. And we've also created a dashboard so that you can see what your assets and liabilities are. And with our partners, we're hoping that then it connects you to all the financial solutions that you need. So whether you need extra medical coverage, you want to start looking into investments, etc., it's all there. So we've now got an AI chatbot that we're hoping that will also help users to figure out what's going on. And the next stage is obviously to actually say, right, Frankie, you need to sort your investments out. You are missing X, Y, Z. So that's what we're trying to work towards. Because what we've learned in this 1 year is that people have that sense of inertia. Okay, I've got that information. Now what? Just tell me what to do, right? Most people want us to just tell them what to do. We're not a DIY culture yet, especially when it comes to money. We would rather listen to someone say, okay, put your money in crypto, rather than figuring out and doing the research whether or not that's appropriate, right?
Why is that?
Because it's easy. It's easy to just say, okay, Regina says this, and therefore, because Regina came from this background, or Regina's made that much money in crypto, it surely must work, right? Not taking into account at all what your position is, and which is precisely why Vault actually helps with that, because it organizes your information, and with that dashboard, then you have that visual to say, actually, I've got a lot more debt than I thought, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is the biggest misconception about finance and money?
I think a lot of people think I don't need to get organized because I'm not rich enough. I don't need to talk to a financial planner because I'm not rich enough.
Right.
But what we're seeing...
You feel that you don't qualify.
Yes. For a lot of people, right? Say like, no need lah, I'll do it myself because I'm not there yet, or whatever.
Yeah.
Or my husband sorted out, so why should I care, type thing, right? But what we're seeing from our user database is the fact that they're younger. So it's 20 to 39, because we thought we would be targeting women who are a lot older. But clearly, because they're digital natives, for them it's a lot easier, right? It makes sense. So it's good. So I also know that younger people are now talking to financial planners to figure out how do I plan my life before I get married, etc. So they're actually asking those questions. I wish I did when I was younger.
Yeah, me too.
Right? Because I always thought because money is such a taboo subject, right? I remember trying to talk about money with my dad, and I give you enough. Then after this, you have your own money, you figure it out lah. Right?
Is that changing, you think? Because traditionally, as you said, our parents made us feel that, money, politics, religion is one of those subjects that you shouldn't talk about, especially at dinner tables.
Yeah.
But I know for a fact, I have 3 children, that I want to talk about money with my children.
Yeah.
Not so much religion, but money for sure.
Yeah.
And I want them to understand that they need to take more ownership on the minimum money that they have currently. So how do I tell my children, one, to be a little bit more aware and conscious and thoughtful with their money? And for me as well, Regina, how do I become more literate or educated in money and finance, assets, estate management? I mean, it's a lot. Where do I even begin?
I always tell people to start tracking lah. You need to know where you are.
Okay.
Because how are you going to say hey, telling your kids, okay, this is investments and stuff like that.
Yes.
But if I were to ask you, do you know what your financial position is? Do you know how much money you're actually having to spend on a monthly basis? Right? So are you tracking that? Do you have a budget? People talk about a budget, but do they adhere to it? So that's something completely different, right? So everyone says, I've got a budget.
Yeah.
But do they really know how much they're spending? Are you actually spending 20% on your wants?
Yeah.
As opposed to your needs and stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
Are you paying yourself?
Yeah.
So to me, the beauty of, the internet and everything else, that it's so easy to gain access to information right now, right? Before you would have to go through so much research to figure out how do I budget and stuff like that. So that's precisely why we've decided that we're coming out with financial awareness training modules, both face-to-face as well as digital.
Okay.
Because we want to be able to say hey, it's not as complicated as you think it might be. There's a lot of volume of information out there.
Yeah.
So we're trying to simplify it in a way that most women can identify. Because if I said AUM, assets under management, you have no idea.
No.
If I said these are the kind of asset classes, asset allocation, you're going to think, what are you talking about, right? So we need to break it down. We need to break it down in terms of what does it mean when you invest in a unit trust funds? When I say look out on fees and charges, what does that mean? Where do you look out for those information, right? Yeah, so that's basically why we're trying to help women like you to have that conversation with themselves first before they can actually share that information with their loved ones. Because that's what I've been doing with my girlfriends and our kids, right? So the great thing about what our journey with Wahine is that it's normalizing that conversation.
Yeah.
So for instance, Sophia, our social content manager, who's also Sherry's daughter, she's now asking the right questions about, why am I paying this? Where does the money in terms of the insurance premium goes? Blah blah blah. So things that she wouldn't have thought about if she wasn't involved.
So these training on financial literacy, you've got a digital version, and then are you going to be doing some physical stuff as well?
Yeah.
So how are you going to be doing the physical stuff, and how do we get that information?
So we're looking to roll out in October. So save the date. We'll send out save the dates. So we'll be coming out with 4 modules. But basically, first module is about women in finance. People think, why are you even thinking about that? But I think it's very important for people to realize that because we're the default caretakers, the fact that we outlive the men, that we're a lot more financially vulnerable, right?
Yeah.
So that's one module. Another one is about budgeting, credit scoring, and then also just about investments. So that would also include crypto and stuff like that. Yeah.
I have a question, right? It's a personal question, but I think it's a question that a lot of women want to ask, and sometimes we're a little bit takut.
Yeah.
A bit scared.
Yeah.
Sometimes when you talk about money and when you talk about will and estate planning with your spouses, it can be a little bit uncomfortable. I know it's not for you because you made it very, very clear with your husband Zol.
It's still difficult.
Right.
It still is.
Okay, so if it's still difficult for somebody like you who has been in the business and who has that vast knowledge, like for somebody like me and Elena, our producer, and other women out there, how do we broach the subject with our spouse? What's the best strategy here?
I think you need to start thinking about what your relationship is all about, right? So how do you talk about difficult situations in the first place?
Yeah.
I think that relationship dynamics is very important for you to figure out, for you to actually have this conversation. For Zol and I, the fact is also the fact that I've done very well in my career.
Yeah.
So talking about money was always very difficult in the sense that it was obvious that I was doing very, very well.
Right.
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 So it gets into the whole idea of like, hey, this is his ego that I've got to deal with. So I think that's also part of the issue for a lot of women, right? Women who are doing better than their spouses. It's like, how do I deal with the fact that I need to worry about the man's ego and still say like, these are the things that we've got to do and have that conversation. So I've used W Vault and Wahine as an excuse now to talk to Zol.
You're so smart.
But it took quitting a job and stuff like that to really have that conversation.
This is kind of like your message to your husband, I think. This is like your product toy. Here you go, Zul. You can talk to my app.
Exactly.
You did that, didn't you? That was your strategy, you cheeky girl.
Yeah.
Right.
But you see, it's difficult, right? You don't have many couples who are saying like, hey, all this is on a spreadsheet. This is how we divide our lives and stuff like that, right? Very, very, very few women I know have been able to achieve that. Or either that or the woman says, I handle everything. You just give me your money. I'll give you a bit of allowance. And then we sort out our lives now. But yes, it is difficult. I don't have any magic advice as to how you're going to speak to your husband. It always boils down to the dynamics. But that's precisely why money is also the number one cause for divorce, right? Pretty much around the world, right? Because when things get tough, and that's part of the reason why COVID was such a major instigator of the high divorce rates, right?
What would your advice be? We talk about divorce, which is something that Wahine Capital talks about.
Yep.
What's your advice to women who are in a relationship, whether they are in a partnership, married or not married, long-term partnership? What should they do and what should they look out for so that in the case of a separation or a divorce, they are protected and guarded? And I think like any breakups or death, you have to deal with so much grief. And one thing is that I realized when my father passed away is that I had to do so much of paperwork that I couldn't deal with the grief. And I just didn't have time to grieve properly. And that's why this subject matter to me, whether it's divorce or death, is very sensitive. It still triggers me. That trauma was just, it was just not nice. And I still feel I have some residual grief. Coming back into context is that how do women feel safe, secured, and at peace before even going into a marriage? Is there something that we should do?
Yeah, so precisely why. In 2 weeks' time, I'm having an Insta Live session to talk about marriage, to talk about what I would have done had I known a lot of things at the age of 25, right?
Right.
The reason for that is very, very simple, because we had a forum on divorce in April, then we had a child maintenance workshop last month. Because what we're trying to say is that when it comes to divorce, it's not something that you just break up on and that's it.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things because you had a shared life. So, you even if you don't have children, there are a lot of assets. You might have pets and stuff like that. You need to be able to do this breakup in a rational way, right?
Yes, rational.
Right. So because a lot of when it comes to divorce, a lot of people think, okay, I've sorted out the legal, that's it. I don't need to deal with anything else. But it's usually what causes the most stress and why there's so much anger and hatred. It's all back to money, right? Right. So that's why what we're doing when we did the divorce forum was to say, these are your rights. Whether you're Muslim or non-Muslim, these are your rights. These are the issues that you've got to think about before you even contemplate. You've got to know where your financial position is, how much money do you need to survive with or without kids, etc. How much to claim for child maintenance before you can start really going through the whole process, right?
Yeah.
And that's similarly with marriage, because our users are a lot younger. What we want to say is that these are your rights. Make sure you have that conversation with your intended one, because it's nice when you're in love, everything is rosy. But a few months in, and you realize, hang on a minute, someone's got to pay the bills. I'm now pregnant, and it costs $8,000 to just have a natural birth right now, right, in a private hospital. And medical insurance is inflation rate is double digits, 12% or something like that. So you can imagine how costly it is. AIA was it that just came out with some information that it costs about 1.1 million ringgit to raise a child in Kuala Lumpur. Right. So
1.1
million. So you need. So
Hang
if
on,
you're going
can I just
up to university lah, yeah.
Up to university, and is this local public school versus international school?
So this is university overseas, but if you were to have your child go to a local, then it'll be a minimum 400,000. Still a lot of money.
Yeah.
Yeah. So at which
I have
point?
3 of those.
Yeah. So good luck to you.
Thanks.
Yeah. So you think about it, right? So a lot of people, and you look at the divorce rates. What was really interesting is that people are getting divorced at younger ages or after 50. So at 25 or after 50. So which means that a few years of marriage, they realize, hey, it's not working out. And then what, right? So then you've got a lot of anger, you've got a lot of trauma attached. So what we want to say is like to the young women out there, have those hard conversations with yourself first. Figure out, is this what you really want? Is your partner mature enough to be able to handle a life together? Because I still feel that at the end of the day, no matter how good or how bad you are, we're in it for life, right? Yeah, till death do us part. Sorry, Zul.
Sorry, Zul. We're having this conversation. Can you maybe share a story that you've experienced or have dealt with one of your clients where they were faced with incredible challenges, whether it's divorce, where you have had to help her and guide her and maneuver the entire process so that she is safeguarded? Have you had any of those?
Well, W Vault's only about a year old, so we've not had any major cases like that. But what we've seen is that a lot of women are realizing, hey, with W Vault, they can get organized, and basically help them if anything were to happen. But what I've seen personally, and this is part of the reason why we built W Vault, was the dependence on someone else right? So I had a very good friend where she had 6 kids. She has 6 kids, right? Husband just walks away one day and she's completely dependent on him in terms of monetarily and obviously emotionally. She couldn't even afford the fees for her divorce.
Oh my goodness.
So let alone figure out how much money she has or how much liability she has. Everything was just went out of the door when the husband left. So, and then that was one of the key things when I told my daughter, I said, we must never be in this position, right? You need to be financially independent enough that even if you want to leave, you can. And that's also what's plaguing a lot of women in Malaysia is that they can't even leave because they have no financial access. And that's scary. Yeah.
It is very, 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 very scary. It's getting all of us to think, right? My husband and I have conversations about what will happen if either he and I leave and to the children. Thankfully, he's an incredibly generous guy. Very, 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 very generous. He's done his will. The issue is that I need to do my will and update my will because I have asset outside of Malaysia. And I have a few bucks here and there. But again, they're just everywhere lah.
Yeah.
Regina.
Yeah.
You know, so as a potential user of WV Vault, what can I do first? So I go onto your app, I download it, and then
it's a website still.
It's still a website?
Yeah.
Okay. So I go onto your website, I register, and then what do I do? How long is the process? Is there a fee?
Well, assuming that you're organized, so let's say you already have an Excel spreadsheet of everything that you have.
Don't.
So assuming you do, because if you do, then it'll take about 15 minutes.
Okay.
Just 15 minutes if you had all that information, which is basically 9 categories of assets, 5 categories of liabilities. The reason for that is very simple because we wanted to be able to ensure that because you can download that information that if you've inputted, and then you can actually pass that document to the lawyers to start doing a will. So, but we've not gone to the level of actually putting in the different currencies. But what you upload is up to you. So technically, let's say if you put in your EPF or bank account, you could actually then put just a piece of paper of saying that, you know, you also have these other accounts in the US or wherever else or Singapore and stuff like that.
Will you also be able to grow my my funds? Do you also do that?
We work with partners because we're not a licensed fund manager or a financial advisor at the moment.
Yeah.
So we work with licensed entities that you can basically talk to them and then start on the investment journey. So what we've done, because obviously it's very scary to suddenly say, okay, I'm just going to talk to a fund manager and stuff like that.
Yes.
And figure out.
Yes.
So what we've done is that we've created a network of experts. So currently they're just all just women. So we've got we've got ex-fund managers, we have got executive coach, we've got financial planners, we've got clinical psychologists. So whether it talks about money, relationships, or career, you can basically just get free coaching, 15 minutes. Double check with those ladies and say, okay, should I look at this? Should I not look at this? Or should I quit my job or whatever? And then, so because the reason for that was very simple, because at the end of the day, no matter how good your digital product is, it's always nice to bounce it off with a human being, right?
Of course.
Especially if that person has 20 odd years, 30 years in terms of experience, right?
Yes.
So we thought, hey, because these ladies also wanted to give something back, right?
Pay it forward.
So pay it forward. So I thought, okay.
That's lovely.
So we've got amazing women who say, okay, we want to be able to help people. And at the same time, hopefully that also triggers the user to say like, okay, I know which way to go. And I thought that was a better way of doing things rather than just saying, depend on the AI, right?
Yeah. No, that's fantastic. That's so, so important. I want to touch on a little bit more about the business. What are you going to do? What are your plans to expand your product? Obviously, W Vault is a priority and you need to grow it and nurture it to a place where you like it to be.
Yes.
Are there any other areas that both of you want to go into?
Yeah, definitely. So that's why we're talking about the financial awareness training, right? So we also realize that people are not going to get organized if they're not aware of why they need to be organized. So that's the main thing that we're working on. But the other things that we're also working on is also just to do other projects in terms of figuring out how do we, track child maintenance and stuff like that. Is also because what Wahine is all about is actually trying to bring attention to those difficult topics, right? Divorce, child maintenance, and all that. So we're hoping to be able to roll out some sort of tracker to also help women out there. So to make a case and say like, hey, you owe me this much over the years. Yeah.
Wow.
So we're hoping to, not just keep it to Malaysia because we think that all these problems that we're trying to solve are universal. So first stop is Southeast Asia. We've got about 321 million women. So I think the potential is there.
Is this the first of its kind, not only in Malaysia, but in Asia, what you're providing?
I think so, from what our research shows, because there might be investment apps out there for women.
Overlaps in some of the...
some things. But at the end of the day, a digital vault that keeps your information and then that helps you figure out other bits of, your financial management, no.
Just to summarize, your digital vault, W Vault, it's basically your safety deposit, right? That traditionally we have, those metal, very heavy box that you put all your important documents and files and you put it away.
Yeah.
Whereas this platform that you've created is taking all of that and putting it up digitally. So if anything happens, it's there. It's monitored.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah.
It's beautiful. Why didn't anybody think of that before?
Because it's hard. Because there's human inertia. You're comfortable,
Emotions.
right?
Got it. I want to talk to you a little bit more about investors in a business.
Yeah.
Right? Coming from a financial background and now being on the other side of the landscape as an entrepreneur, it's very different, right?
Yeah.
You see things very differently, I'm sure. Do you have an investor in Wahine Capital? Is it just you and Sherry?
Yes, we have.
You have an investor.
Yes.
If so, how many do you have? And how did you come to a decision about we need an investor? 1. 2, how do you identify an investor? And what sort of an investor should you look out for? And I understand with different business and different products and scalability, it's very different.
Yeah.
But what's your take on your business and your product and potentially for other women entrepreneurs that are looking to build their business or scale their business, who should they look out for? And is it a good idea to have investor versus traditional way of financing yourself, like loans, soft loans?
That's such a woman thing, right? To not ask for investments. So I was at a masterclass organized by the UNCTAD. So there was 20 odd of us, all women, right? All entrepreneurs. Only 3 of us actually had financing external financing at that point. And that was really interesting because the moderator was saying, had it been a room full of men, it would have been the other way around.
Right.
Right? So some of those businesses were profitable, were over 10 years, and they had never asked for external investments. But the reason why I decided that I wanted external investments from very early on, so in fact, we got investors even before we came out with W Vault, right? To really at the idea stage, right? Because that helps, right? Because when you got extra cash runway, then it's easier for you to grow the business, figure out what else you need to hire people and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So, and I think one of the key lessons I keep hearing from other female entrepreneurs is, one, they don't get investments from outside. Two, they don't pay themselves. So what happens is that they are burned out, they have no money, and the business is not growing anywhere. So I guess my experience in investments probably helped in that sense that I was open to the idea of getting external funding. And yeah, I'm raising again, trying to, because I need to get the vault to be a lot better, a lot more secure, trying to do a lot of other things. And, I need money. And yes, I can use my own personal money, but that also means it's my savings and retirement money, right? So this is a business. I need to run it as professionally as I can. It's all my time and sweat and tears. So it's important that I get external funding so that I can grow a lot more. And I think that's something that a lot of women are very hesitant about.
Yes.
Yeah.
Still.
Yeah.
Yeah. I sometimes question it.
Yeah.
I still do. I mean, we have an investor now, and I've wondered if I should seek more investors so that we can have more funds, as you said, to grow the business and to hire people and to execute our vision.
Yeah.
But how do you, I think the bigger question is, how do you manage having multiple investors? You said that you had an investor and now you are raising more funds, which means
I have
that
investors already.
you have investors.
Yeah.
And you are seeking more funds. What does that mean? Does that mean that you need more money pumped into the company?
Yep.
And therefore you are seeking for other investors, or you're asking your existing investors, hey, I need to pump more money into the business so that we can grow? So how do you have that conversation with your existing investors?
Yeah.
And if you are seeking other investors, how do you maneuver that? Like, just advise this 15-year-old girl.
So basically, the existing investors are people who knew my track record in Nomura, as well as some friends. So, and they understood what Wahine was all about and what W Vault is all about. So a lot of patient capital there, right? So for the next round that I'm seeking right now is different people.
Right.
So looking at VCs, but we're looking at impact investors.
Right.
So they've got a lot more long-term runway and they believe in the fact that what I'm trying to do is actually
impact-driven.
Is impact-driven, trying to be, to ensure that there's more financial inclusion, right? So that's something that, so Sherry and I have been very, meticulous in trying to figure out what kind of investors that we want to attract. We definitely do not want to get the ones who are thinking, okay, you need to be profitable by year 3, that sort of thing, and and make me 20x within 3 years type thing. What we want is, because it's a lot of awareness and stuff like that.
Yes.
We want people who understand that basically, this is where we're getting at.
Yes.
We're wanting to reach 8 million women by 2026 type thing, right? And how do we get there, right? So different conversations, different type of investment mindset. So maybe angel investors are a pretty good way to start, maybe,
Would you say you would recommend it for businesses in general, across the board?
Yeah, I think, okay, so another thing that you've got to also think about is your mindset, right? You got to be open to the fact that someone's going to be scrutinizing you, your business, your numbers, and that's scary, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that's quite scary because you're thinking, I've done it this way, it's worked. Yeah. So, but that's the whole entrepreneurship journey, right? It's actually opening yourself up to someone saying, actually, you're full of crap. And, slapping you left and right and center, right?
Yeah.
So, but...
Have you been slapped?
Well, I think I have in a
Have
way,
you?
like, thinking that, hey, this works. And then suddenly realizing, actually, maybe not.
Right.
Yeah. So it's a humbling experience, entrepreneurship, for sure. It's a lot easier to take a salary, but hey, why not?
Yeah. It's so difficult, I find, entrepreneurship, because there are moments when I get into a funk. Have you had funks?
I get funks all the time.
Do you?
Yeah, you sort of second guess yourself and
Oh
think
my
like,
God.
why am I doing this?
Yeah.
Surely there's an easier way, right?
Right?
Yeah.
So what happens when you get into that funk? And how do you get out of it, more importantly?
Well, the great thing about what I do is the fact that because I still have one foot in the capital markets, and because what Wahine is doing is completely different from what people are used to in the capital markets. So everyone thinks that I'm doing such a brilliant job, right? So that's whenever I'm thinking, oh my God, is this how it's going to be and stuff like that? And they think like, hey, you're doing a great job. Keep at it. And that at this moment, it's okay. But I'll let you know.
Please. I'm going to check in with you every now and then. So how? Funk or no funk?
Yeah.
Okay. I have a lot of questions actually, but we've got limited time. But there is one very important question that I ask all our interviewees and the women that I interview, and it's to do with health. A topic I feel that isn't talked about enough, especially among entrepreneurs. We talk about it as parents, right?
Yeah.
We want our kids to be healthy all the time, not just physically, but have a healthy mindset.
Yep.
As entrepreneurs, we deal with business plans, we deal with investors, marketing, branding. Health never comes into the forefront of any of this. And I feel that it's a dangerous place to be when you don't incorporate your health.
Yep.
Again, not just the physique, but here.
Mentally.
We talk about funk and how do you get that funk out? If you're emotionally drained and if you're emotionally unhealthy, it's harder, right? So how important is health to you? And I know you're super fit. You've just done a half marathon recently, and you do that quite a bit, don't you?
Yes, I do.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit more about your definition of healthy and your health regime and why it's important, especially as women juggling so many different things.
Well, health. So basically, the whole journey started very, very early on, because I was MD for Nomura at the age of 34. So going to the gym or just running was my way of letting off steam. That was how I got out of handling the stress and stuff like that. So I've always taken a very healthy and balanced approach to running, to work and everything else, which is, that's how we met, right? So yeah, it's all about balance. But sometimes as entrepreneurs, you try and fit in a bit too much. So a good case is the half marathon I did over the weekend. Was not very prepared for it. So I did very badly and I suffered for it, right? So if you saw me on Sunday night, you would have seen me hobbling. But that's exactly how it is with life, and especially with entrepreneurship life. I think we really need to basically take time for ourselves and figure out and slot those dates, those times within your calendar and say like, I need to do a workout. I'll sort everything else after that, right?
No compromise.
No compromise. Yeah. Because if we don't do that, that's where, and that's been the main challenge for me in the last few years as I started Wahine, because I'm trying to fit in so much and I think, okay lah, I'll do it tomorrow morning, the next run or whatever. And then next thing I know, that tomorrow morning is already tomorrow evening, right? And it doesn't happen. So it's got to be done. You just need to be disciplined about it. So not everyone agrees. My parents think I'm mad, but I think it keeps me sane. So to get out of the funk, it's exercise, eating well, as well sleep, and then the spiritual side lah.
What sort of spiritual side do you partake in?
So just having that downtime of. I'm not to say that I'm a religious person in any way, but prayers do help a lot. Having that 5 minutes, just switching off and saying, "Okay, help me, God," and then just figuring out that at the end of the day, there's certain things that you just can't do by yourself, right? You need extra assistance. So fine.
Beautiful. Thank you, Regina.
You're very welcome.
Thank you so much for your time, and thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and your experiences.
Thank you.
I look up to you. I really do. And I will still be stalking you. I will forever stalk you and check in up on you, to see where you are, and potentially, I don't know, be on that side of the team eventually. Hint, hint.
Yeah, we're definitely needing extra support every time, right?
Oh, I mean, you have my support in any way. One, I need to get onto your vault.
Yes.
And tell all my other friends, girlfriends, as well as people that we get to work with.
Yeah.
It is important to have control.
Yes.
So
that you have peace of mind.
Yeah. That is the biggest thing. Peace of mind.
Yes.
We'll leave it at that.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to Business on the Rise. Don't forget to follow us and subscribe to our YouTube channel.